Today on Facing Life Head On, there's been much discussion about the immediate positives of choosing life over abortion. Today we're going to hear about the long-term benefits for women who have made life-affirming decisions regarding unexpected pregnancies. This week we talked with New Jersey mothers who years ago had faced unplanned pregnancies and in spite of their circumstances chose life for their children. Dee found out she was pregnant as a teenager. Though the situation was less than desirable, she didn't have an abortion. Instead, she gave life to a baby girl. Tiffany, now in her 20s, is thankful every day for the gift of life. We also met Jo Ann Gerling and two of her daughters, Taryn and Kaylin. Both girls faced unplanned pregnancies, one as a college student, the other with a boyfriend who left her. Their story first began almost 8 years ago.
I guess it begins in Korea, where I met the father of my daughter, and we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and we wound up coming back to America after teaching in Korea together, and we moved to the city and both got jobs in Manhattan, and we were together for a while and started having some problems, and I actually found out that I was pregnant when we were broken up.
Taryn prepared to break the news to her ex-boyfriend.
He wasn't very supportive at all. When he first came over, I would have loved for him just to hug me and tell me this is going to be okay and we can get through this together and we're going to put our differences aside and try to make this work together. And none of those words came out of his mouth. He was extremely concerned about himself, how this was going to affect his life, and he was completely overwhelmed with the thought of facing fatherhood, and in fact didn't want to face fatherhood and wanted me to have an abortion.
Did he just come right out and ask you to have an abortion?
Yes. He wanted to try to persuade me that there was another way, that I could just have an abortion and that this could all be over with and we wouldn't have to, our lives wouldn't have to change, or his life wouldn't have to change.
Abortion was not an option for Taryn, so she turned to her family for support.
After dealing with the father that night, the next day I went home and stayed with my sister and just said, don't tell Mommy and Daddy I'm home for the weekend. And we just hung out at her place all weekend with my other siblings, and we just kind of tried to process, what was happening. And it wasn't until a couple weeks later that I went home again to tell my parents, and that was extremely difficult.
It was a Sunday afternoon, and she had called and said she was coming for dinner, and all the other kids showed up. And I thought, well, this is nice. Everybody came from different directions. And before I had the dinner on the table, she called my husband and I into the living room, and the kids came from all different areas of the house.
I told them that, I had something to tell them. We were all sitting in the living room, and I said, I'm pregnant. And my dad said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to have the baby. And my mom just got up and walked across the room to where I was sitting, and she just came and hugged me and said, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay.
I thought, okay, we can handle this. But my heart went to her because I sensed that the relationship was not a good relationship.
The father of the baby did come with me for about 4 or 5 months. We got back together and we tried to make our relationship work, but after trying and trying, we broke up when I was 5 months pregnant.
I guess when your daughter, who's not married, tells you that she's pregnant, the next thing you want to hear is, but we're getting married. And I wasn't hearing that. I told her honey, it's okay to be pregnant. We're here for you. And if you need to come home, you come home.
As Taryn moved home and began preparing for her baby, her sister Kaylin was about to discover some unexpected news of her own.
I really was not in a good place in life. Although I was going to college, I was not getting good grades. And I met my boyfriend at the time and at waiting tables. And soon after we met, I turned 20 and found out that I was pregnant. My boyfriend was very supportive and immediately said, well, you know, we can have this baby, everything will be okay. But at the same time, I did have many of my friends who I was going out with and partying saying, what are you thinking? Why do you have your whole life ahead of you. You barely even know this guy. Why wouldn't you just have an abortion? And immediately, I remember thinking to myself, wow, how easy this would be just to have an abortion. This is why people have an abortion, because, this whole life change that I was experiencing, it doesn't have to be this way. I could just continue living my life carefree for myself, doing what I wanted when I wanted to. And at that moment, it was a, huge realization calling back at me saying, wait, your life, will never be the same again, whether you have an abortion or whether you have this child.
With her sister Taryn pregnant and now living at home, Kaylin hesitated to tell her parents that she too was expecting.
We sat down for a family dinner, and my parents didn't really know what the family dinner was. And at the end of dinner, my siblings were like, okay, nudging me underneath the table, like, you better say it, you better say it. And I just could not, I couldn't do it. I couldn't tell them. And that was really very hard, a very hard situation. And thinking about it brings me right back to all those emotions. So the second time we gathered for another family dinner,
We had just finished eating dinner, and my husband went to get up from the table, and she said, Dad, sit down. I'm pregnant.
They did not say anything immediately and were very shocked, very surprised.
We were living this situation with Taryn and now with Kaylin. Never expected it. Just never expected it.
When we return, the family pulls together.
We all rallied around Taryn, being a single mother.
Thanks again for joining us. It's our hope and prayer you'll find this program inspiring, heartwarming, and motivating. Remember, quality programming like this is only possible when people who care become partners with us for life. Please become a partner by sending your gift through our secure website at facinglife.tv or call the phone number on your screen during normal business hours. We need you to succeed. Here's another way you can help. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the program and share your ideas for future topics or guests. The next generation is depending on us to give them the information they need to face life head on. We'll see you next week, and may God bless you.
Earlier, we met sisters Kaylin and Taryn. Both faced unexpected pregnancies at the same time. After Taryn's boyfriend left her and their unborn baby, she began preparing for motherhood with the help of her family.
The biggest fear was having a child that wasn't going to have a father. What made that easier was my family, knowing that that would somehow make up for the loss of the biological father, that this child was going to be surrounded with so much love from their family that that was going to be enough. And I told myself that, and looking back, it really was.
We all rallied around Taryn, being a single mother, and the father not being in the picture. We were very conscious that Taryn needed every one of us.
Baby Kyla was welcomed home by a proud, loving family who also eagerly awaited the arrival of Kaylin's baby.
It was very affirming for my husband and I that the girls were choosing life. We were very aware that they didn't have to. We didn't have to know they were pregnant. It could have been a deep, dark secret, and they would have never, they could have not told us, and they did tell us, and we recognized that how hard it was for them to come to us and tell us, and especially Kaylin, not only being young, but being second to do this.
Was it difficult for you to make the decision to keep your baby?
It was difficult to understand how my life was going to change when I decided that I was going to keep my child. That was the most difficult part. But I knew in my heart that there was only one decision to be made. I thought to myself, 10 years down the road, what decision is going to really matter? Am I going to live with having an abortion on my conscience for the rest of my life? Or 10 years down the road, well, I look at my child and say, oh, I regret you not being here. I couldn't believe that I would feel that way about my own child. This was a joyous thing, and I was able to celebrate this new life that was coming into the world and really appreciate this gift.
When baby Taryn was born, Kaylin's family and her boyfriend were there to cheer her on.
Lewis was there and attended the birth and, you know, coached her through the labor. He had attended all the childbirth classes with her. So I was starting to not have too much of a jaundice eye, you know, looking at him, thinking that, okay, he's, you know, maybe he's here for the long haul.
When our son was 18 months old, we got married. And it was a very, very joyous occasion on many different aspects.
You know, to see her at the altar and professing her vows and being a family, you know, and going on and having more children. Just beautiful. Talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just wonderful.
Meanwhile, Taryn and Kyla moved to an apartment of their own. Taryn took a teaching job at a local school where she met Mike. 2 years later, he would become her husband and the adoptive father of little Kyla.
No one looking at our family would ever know that she wasn't my husband's, you know, biological daughter, because he treats her like she is, and we're just one big happy family now.
Taryn and Mike also have a son, Pace. Kaylin and her husband are raising Taryn and 2 daughters, Lola and Della. What did it take to get you to where you are today?
For me, it was my faith and the support of my family. Just continuing to pray, just constantly praying. That's all I could do at that time when you're feeling so desperate and hopeless.
And the hopeless days gave way to hope?
Absolutely, yes, to hope.
Up next, we meet the woman who was once a teen mom and the daughter she raised to adulthood.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
This week we met several New Jersey women who took a walk down memory lane. They shared with us how the unexpected pregnancies they experienced years ago resulted in blessings they never imagined. We also met Tiffany, who now 25, was born to a teen mom.
My mother was a teen mother, and I always knew that my mother was young. I knew that my mom was a teenage mother from as far back as I can remember. There wasn't a time where it was like, oh, I'm shocked, and I didn't realize that my life's different than everybody else's.
I was 15 for 1 month when she was born.
What were the circumstances of your unexpected pregnancy?
I had a a boyfriend. And, you know, I think I was a lot like most young people, where they think, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. It won't happen to me.
And it did happen.
It did happen, yes.
From the time that I was a very, very young child, I remember being absolutely proud of my mother. When my mother would come to school, all the other kids would say, "Your mom's so pretty, your mom's so cool," you know? And so I never had any, I guess, insecurity.
Was there any point in your life where you considered an abortion?
No.
Why not?
Never. I don't ever remember coming to a conclusion, this is right versus wrong or whatever. My family just didn't talk about it, so I didn't get it from there, but the only thing I can pinpoint it back to is when I was some point in my young life, I had seen a brochure of, and there was a picture of aborted babies in a garbage bag on that brochure. I don't know where I got it or where it came from, but to me, that just did it. That obviously that's not right.
And that image stuck with you?
Yeah.
I've always had a very deep love for my mom because I knew from a very young age that she chose life. I knew that family members had said, why didn't you tell us sooner? We would have paid for an abortion. So I knew that she wanted me. I knew that she had given me this gift of her youth from a very young age. And I knew even as I was experiencing my youth, I remember after I turned 15 and thinking, wow, my mom had me now. You know, my mom had this little baby when she was this age. And so I think that it pushed me to want to make sure that I made everything that I possibly could out of my life, that I took every opportunity that maybe she didn't have.
Do you remember as a child talking with your mom about your beginnings?
Not a distinct moment. It was just something that was known. I mean, it was something that was
always there?
It was just always there. I mean, she was very open, very honest. My mother was never, a lot of young moms fall into being the friend. My mom was not the friend. My mom was the mom. And so I had that respect for her, that, you know, she didn't go into too many details. I just knew.
You know, you always want better for your kids than what you had. And contrary to what a lot of kids think, parents